say that they had heard that they were coming in and they were saying, we want a miracle. We want the power of God. We want the Son of God. And they pressed in and they received. And multitudes, he healed everyone because they came in faith. But in his own hometown, he couldn't because they knew who he was. Oh, this is Jesus. What does he talk about being a miracle? He's the illegitimate son of Mary and Joseph. Who does he think he is? His sisters live here. It's hard to receive when you know too much about someone.
Yes.
That's why one of the things the devil will try and do is use the spirit of familiarity to stop people from receiving from the power of God. Well, I know them. I don't recognize the anointing. I don't appreciate the anointing. I know who they are. I know them. I know where they were raised. I know their parents. I know their brothers and sisters. I know them, and now they're thinking they're a big preacher? You know when Billy Graham started his ministry, his own hometown didn't recognize that he was a minister? Why? They knew Billy. Billy was probably the guy that broke a window once. Little Billy Graham. What's little Billy Graham going to do? Change the world. But what happens when people get that familiar with someone, they can't receive the power of God because all that they see is that person and they can't see the anointing of God on them. That's why it's so hard for people to receive from their families. Well, that's my sister. I know her. Who does she think she is going to be praying for the sick? Who does he think he is that he's a preacher? I remember when he was a kid, he was always talking. Yeah, that's probably his preparation time. But we end up getting so familiar with it, we end up not receiving, and that's what happened in Jesus' hometown. They didn't have faith. They all knew who he was. So let's turn to Mark chapter 5. Should be finished by opening soon, right? Mark chapter 5. Was there reading in verse 25? And a certain woman, let's back up. No, that's not. Start at verse 25. We'll back up later. A certain woman had an issue of blood 12 years and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had and was nothing better, but rather grew worse. When she had heard of Jesus, so she heard the word, came in the press behind him and touched his garment. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. Straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. So this is the account that we already referred to earlier, how the one woman in a multitude got healed. We know that people were pressing in on Jesus from all around. He was traveling around in this big crowd. And here was this one woman who had suffered with an issue of blood for many years and had spent all of her livelihood on the doctors. Now when she heard that when she heard that the word was coming, she thought maybe he could heal her. So she decided to make her way through the throng, through the people, and touch the hem of his garment. Now I don't think, have often appreciated the amount of faith that this woman had. This was a woman that had been bleeding for 12 years. When you bleed for 12 years, you're going to have weakness and a loss of blood. It's going to cause you to have your strength isn't going to be there. Now, I don't know all the medical terms for it. Others can help you with that. But when you have an anemia would probably be setting in by that time. 12 years of not bleeding, 12 years of having to stay indoors because under the Jewish law, if a woman was bleeding, she couldn't go out in public. She was confined to her house. So for 12 years, this woman has been in her house bleeding. For 12 years, the doctors have been coming in and saying, well, that didn't work. Let's try this snake oil. Well, that didn't work. Let's try that. Well, let's try this. Let's try that. Money, please. So for 12 years, the doctor had been coming in and taking her money, but he says she got no better. She only got worse. So even if she started off not too bad, 12 years later, she's worse than she was, and she's now been confined to her house under the law. In fact, as she goes out in public right now, the law is coming down on her with both feet. And she says, I don't care. I've heard about Jesus, and he's coming by here, and if I can even just touch the hem of his garment, I'm going to be made whole. Well, I don't think she necessarily thought in her mind, well, I'm going to go out and see if I can touch the hem of his garment. But I pictured a woman that's been beaten down over the years, who's lost her livelihood, who's been bleeding and weakened, and she's crawling out there and saying, I'm just going to touch him, because there's a bunch of people, big, strong men standing in the way. She has to crawl along on the dirt to get there. I can see you between the legs. And reaches out and touches the hem of his garment, and she's made whole. Now Jesus was surrounded by this large crowd, but immediately he stopped, and he asked his disciples, who touched him? His disciples says, huh? You have maybe 1,500 people pushing around you here, but you're saying, who touched you? That's the disciples' action. That's what they're going. He says, thou seest the multitude thronging you, and thou sayest, who touched me? Have you ever tried to figure out who's pushing against you when you're walking through when the train station or the plane station, and everybody's crowding through the things, they're all trying to get out, and you're like, okay, who touched me? You, that one stuck through there. You all did! But Jesus wasn't saying who just happened to brush up against me. He said who touched me. Now you know when you're in that type of crowd, there's probably many people that have been touching Jesus. I know when we've been lined up in lineups and everybody's pushing and trying to get in, and you've got people pushing on you from all sides, and you're just sort of trying to protect your vital parts and get through the crowd somehow or other. And everybody's pushing in, and they're pushing from the back, and they're pushing from the side. You're going, okay, we'd hurry if we could, but the guys in front of me aren't moving. And I don't want to get much closer because I don't even know them yet. Who touched me? And they're all pushing. Undoubtedly, people brushed up against him. Undoubtedly, people touched him accidentally. Now, as people were pushing and shoving to get near Jesus, it's very likely that people were being pushed into and bumping into him. That guy's pushing, this guy's pushing that guy, and I'm getting moved. It's undoubtedly that people were pushing and shoving. But the power of God was not activated. Not one of them got healed. They're all pushing, they're all shoving, they're all trying to get close, and nothing happens by the accidental touch. Now, even though the crowd has surrounded Jesus, even though people have touched him, only one person received the power of God in that crowd. Just one person reached out and touched him. So what was different when this woman touched Jesus? Well, verse 34 gives us the answer. Jesus said to this woman, daughter, thy faith has made thee whole. Your faith made you whole. So faith made the connection, and faith caused the power of God to show up in that situation. Now all the other people were pushing and shoving, and they were all interested spectators, but one woman came out expecting to receive, and he said to her, your faith has made you whole. Now we found out just before that Jairus also used his faith. Now we're going to back up. Verse 22. And behold, there comes one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet and besought him greatly, saying, my little daughter lies at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. So here comes the ruler of the synagogue. He has come and he says, my little daughter is sick. She's at the point of death. I need you to come and lay hands on her so that she can live. And Jesus says, oh, okay, let's go. And he goes with him, and all